Black Nanny found strange marks on Billionaire Heiress's dress. Her truth shook them all. You have no business making these accusations. You're just the help. Know your place. With all due respect, Mrs. Harrington, when a child's safety is at risk, there is no place. There is only what's right. Eleanor Wright stood her ground in the opulent living room of the Harrington estate, her hands steady despite the tension crackling through the air. Behind her, police officers exchanged uncomfortable glances while the household staff hovered at the periphery. 8-year-old Sophia clung to Eleanor's skirt, face tear-streaked and frightened. Across from them, Victoria Harrington's perfectly made-up face had transformed into a mask of cold fury, while her husband Richard gripped the back of a leather armchair so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "I want her arrested for defamation," Richard Harrington demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "She's trying to destroy our family with these disgusting lies." The lead detective stepped forward, her expression grave. "Mr. Harrington, given the evidence Ms. Wright has provided in Sophia's testimony, we have enough to—" "Evidence? What evidence?" Victoria shrieked, losing her composure entirely. "The delusional ramblings of our nanny and some childish drawings. Do you have any idea who we are? My husband funds half the public works in this city." Eleanor knelt down to Sophia's level, gently wiping away the child's tears. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about. Telling the truth is always brave, even when it's scary." As the detective moved toward Richard with handcuffs, the man lunged suddenly at Eleanor. You turned my own daughter against me?" Time seemed to slow as chaos erupted in the room. Security personnel rushed forward, officers shouted commands, and Victoria's scream pierced the air. Eleanor pulled Sophia protectively behind her as Richard was restrained, his face contorted with hatred. But let's go back to how this all started. It was just 3 hours earlier when Eleanor was folding laundry in the east wing of the Harrington mansion, humming softly to herself as sunshine streamed through the windows. Eleanor Wright had been the Harrington family's nanny for nearly 2 years. At 58, she brought decades of childcare experience to the position, along with the wisdom that only comes with living through the tumultuous years of the civil rights movement and raising 3 children of her own. The job paid well better than any position she'd held before, and she had grown to love 8-year-old Sophia, the Harringtons' only child. As she sorted through the basket of freshly laundered clothes, Eleanor's fingers paused on Sophia's favorite blue dress. Something caught her eye, small, peculiar marks along the hem that hadn't been there before. Holding the fabric closer to the light, Eleanor felt a chill run through her body. Her 30 years of experience caring for children told her these weren't ordinary stains. "Get your coat, honey. We're going out for a while." "She's not going anywhere with you," Victoria snapped, moving to block the doorway. But Sophia had already appeared, wide-eyed and trembling. "I want to go with Eleanor," she said in a small but determined voice. What followed was a blur of movement and shouting. Richard grabbed for Sophia while Victoria called security. Eleanor managed to guide the child past them, moving quickly through the house toward the front entrance. They made it to Eleanor's modest car just as Richard burst through the front door. "You're making a terrible mistake," he called after them, his voice carrying across the circular driveway. "You'll never work in childcare again." "I'll see to that personally." Eleanor drove straight to the police station, her hands steady on the wheel despite her racing heart. Beside her, Sophia sat quietly, her small hand gripping Eleanor's arm. "Are we in trouble?" the girl asked in a small voice. "No, sweetheart," Eleanor assured her. "We're doing the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing feels scary, but that doesn't make it wrong." At the station, they were met by Angela, whose professional demeanor barely concealed her anger as she reviewed the evidence her mother had collected. The police officers took their statements with appropriate gravity, particularly when Sophia, with Eleanor's gentle encouragement, bravely shared her story. "We'll need to send officers to the Harrington residence," the lead detective explained. "If what you're saying is true, and I have no reason to doubt it, we need to act quickly." "They'll deny everything," Angela warned, "and they'll have their attorneys there within minutes." The detective nodded grimly. "We're aware of who we're dealing with, but money and influence only go so far when it comes to child abuse cases." As predicted, by the time they all arrived back at the Harrington estate, Eleanor, Sophia, Angela, and 4 police officers, the house was already a hive of activity. Richard's personal attorney had arrived, along with what appeared to be a crisis management team. And that brings us back to where we started, the confrontation in the living room, with Eleanor standing firm despite the Harringtons' attempts to intimidate her and discredit Sophia's testimony. As Richard was handcuffed and read his rights, Victoria's facade finally cracked. "I didn't know," she whispered, her face ashen. "I swear I didn't know." Eleanor felt no satisfaction in the woman's distress, only sadness for a family torn apart by secrets and abuse. "Sometimes we don't see what we don't want to see," she said quietly. The days that followed were difficult ones. Sophia was placed temporarily with a foster family specially trained to work with traumatized children, while the legal process ground into motion. The story broke in the local news despite the Harringtons' attempts to suppress it, and Eleanor found herself unexpectedly thrust into the spotlight. "Mom, you need to be prepared," Angela warned her over coffee in Eleanor's modest apartment a week after the arrest. "They're going to try to destroy your reputation. The defense is already digging into your past, looking for anything they can use against you." Eleanor sipped her coffee calmly. "Let them look. I've lived an honest life, not a perfect one, mind you, but one I can stand by. They're claiming you've had a vendetta against wealthy white families ever since that incident in 1994. Eleanor snorted. "You mean when I reported the Thompsons for not paying their household staff overtime? That wasn't about race or class. It was about right and wrong, just like this is." True to Angela's prediction, the Harrington defense team launched an aggressive campaign to discredit Eleanor. They dredged up an arrest from a civil rights protest in 1968, questioned her financial stability, and even suggested she had manipulated Sophia into making false accusations out of resentment toward the wealthy. What they hadn't counted on was the support Eleanor received from unexpected quarters. Other families she had worked for over the decades came forward with testimonials to her character and professionalism. Former colleagues spoke of her unwavering dedication to children's welfare. Even the Harringtons' household staff, despite risking their own positions, confirmed that they had witnessed disturbing interactions between Richard and his daughter. Most surprisingly, Victoria Harrington herself requested a meeting with Eleanor 3 weeks after her husband's arrest. They met at Angela's law office, Victoria looking years older than she had before, her designer clothes hanging loosely on her frame, her eyes hollow with exhaustion and guilt. "I should have seen it," she said without preamble, her voice hoarse. "There were signs, so many signs." Eleanor waited, letting the woman find her words. "I convinced myself that Sophia was just difficult, that Richard was just strict," Victoria continued. "I was so invested in the image of our perfect family that I couldn't see the reality." She looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. "I'm filing for divorce, and I want to thank you for having the courage I didn't." Eleanor felt a complex mixture of emotions, compassion, anger, and a deep sadness for all that Sophia had endured. "What Sophia needs now is for the adults in her life to put her healing first," she said finally. Victoria nodded, wiping her eyes. "I've started therapy. I want to be a better mother to her if she'll ever trust me again." She hesitated. "The police found other evidence on Richard's computer. It's worse than we thought. There may be other victims." The investigation expanded, and as summer turned to fall, more details emerged that confirmed Eleanor's worst fears. Richard Harrington's abuse extended beyond his daughter, and evidence suggested connections to a network of wealthy, powerful men who had protected each other for years. Through it all, Eleanor visited Sophia regularly, their bond strengthening despite the circumstances. The child showed remarkable resilience, though her recovery would clearly be a long journey. "When can I come live with you?" Sophia asked one day as they walked through a park near her foster home, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet. Eleanor squeezed her hand gently. "Oh, sweetheart, that's complicated. There are rules about these things." "But you're the one who saved me," Sophia insisted. "And Mom still." Figuring things out. It was true. Victoria was making efforts, but years of emotional detachment couldn't be overcome quickly. Her relationship with her daughter remained strained and awkward. "What matters is that you're safe now," Eleanor told her, "and that you have many people who care about you." By December, with the case against Richard Harrington growing stronger by the day and a trial date set for spring, Eleanor had established a new normal. She had found work consulting for a children's advocacy organization, using her experience to help train social workers in recognizing signs of abuse in affluent household situations where wealth and privilege often masked dysfunction. She was preparing for a quiet Christmas with her own family when she received an unexpected call from Sophia's caseworker. "Victoria Harrington has made a request," the woman explained. "She's asking if you would consider a special co-guardianship arrangement for Sophia. She acknowledges that she needs help rebuilding her relationship with her daughter, and Sophia continues to ask for you." Eleanor sat down, stunned by the proposal. "Co-guardianship? I've never heard of such a thing." "It's unusual," the caseworker admitted. But in this case, given the circumstances and Sophia's strong attachment to you, the court might consider it. Victoria is proposing that Sophia would live primarily with her, but you would have a legally recognized role in her life and regular visitation. After careful consideration and many family discussions, Eleanor agreed to meet with Victoria and their respective attorneys to discuss the possibility. The meeting took place at a neutral location, a private room in a downtown restaurant decorated for the holidays, the festive atmosphere at odds with the serious conversation at hand. Victoria had prepared a formal proposal outlining financial support for Eleanor, which she politely declined, educational plans for Sophia, and a visitation schedule. What struck Eleanor most, however, was the change in the woman herself. Gone was the cold, status-conscious socialite, replaced by someone humbled by her own failings and genuinely concerned for her daughter's well-being. "I know I don't deserve a second chance," Victoria said, her voice steady despite her evident nervousness. "But Sophia does deserve to have the people she trusts in her life. She needs stability and healing, and like it or not, we're both part of that equation now." Eleanor studied her thoughtfully. "This won't be easy. We come from different worlds with different values." Victoria nodded. "I'm counting on that, actually. I need to learn from someone who sees clearly what I missed, someone who had the courage to act when I didn't." By early January, as a new year dawned, the court approved a modified version of the co-guardianship arrangement, with strict monitoring and regular reviews. Sophia, upon hearing the news, showed the first genuine smile Eleanor had seen in months. The arrangement was unprecedented and awkward at first. Eleanor, who had always been the help in wealthy households, now found herself regularly sitting at Victoria's table as an equal, advising on parenting decisions and helping Sophia process her trauma through art therapy and gentle conversations. Victoria, for her part, had to swallow her pride repeatedly, accepting guidance from a woman she had once dismissed. There were missteps and disagreements, cultural misunderstandings, and old habits that died hard. But at the center of it all was Sophia, gradually emerging from her shell as she witnessed the two most important women in her life forming an unlikely alliance for her benefit. As Richard's trial approached in April, tensions rose again. The prosecution had built a strong case, but the defense was fighting fiercely, and the media attention had intensified. Sophia would not have to testify in person. Her recorded statements and the physical evidence were deemed sufficient, but the process still took its toll on everyone. The night before the trial was set to begin, Eleanor received a call from Victoria. "Sophia's having nightmares again," she said without greeting. "She's asking for you." Despite the late hour, Eleanor drove to the new, more modest home Victoria had purchased after selling the mansion with its painful memories. She found Sophia curled up in bed, her room illuminated by a gentle nightlight that cast star patterns on the ceiling. "There's my brave girl," Eleanor said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm not feeling very brave," Sophia admitted, her voice small. "What if they don't believe me? What if he doesn't go to jail?" Eleanor stroked her hair gently. "Do you remember what we talked about when all this started, about telling the truth being brave even when it's scary?" Sophia nodded. "Well, you've done the brave part already. Now it's up to the grown-ups in the courtroom to do their jobs, and no matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know something." She took Sophia's small hands in hers. "You've already won the most important battle. You spoke your truth and you started to heal." Victoria appeared in the doorway, a shadow against the hall light. She had been giving them space, but now she moved into the room and sat on the other side of the bed. "Eleanor's right," she said, her voice stronger than Eleanor had ever heard it. "And I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I should have protected you from the beginning, and I failed. But I promise you this, I will never fail you again." Sophia looked from one woman to the other, then did something surprising. She reached out, taking her mother's hand and placing it alongside Eleanor's, creating a circle between the three of them. "My two moms," she said simply. The moment hung in the air, fragile and profound. Eleanor met Victoria's eyes over Sophia's head and saw in them the same complex mix of emotions she herself felt: sorrow for what had been lost, hope for what might yet be saved, and determination to put this child's needs above all else. The trial proceeded as such things do, with legal arguments and evidence presentations, expert testimonies, and character witnesses. Eleanor and Victoria attended together each day, presenting a united front that confused the media but gave Sophia comfort. Richard, seeing the alliance between his ex-wife and the nanny he had disdained, seemed to deflate, the last of his arrogance evaporating as the evidence mounted against him. When the guilty verdict was finally announced in early May, There were no celebrations, only quiet relief and the sense that one chapter was ending as another began. What happens now? Sophia asked as they left the courthouse for the last time, reporters shouting questions behind the security barrier. Eleanor and Victoria exchanged glances, and it was Victoria who answered. Now we keep healing together. Now we build something new. By the following Christmas, the unlikely family they had created had found its rhythm. Victoria had redirected her social connections and financial resources toward child protection organizations, funding a new wing at the Children's Advocacy Center where Eleanor now worked full-time. Sophia, thriving in a new school with consistent therapy, had started a peer support group for children processing trauma. On Christmas Eve, as they gathered in Victoria's home along with Eleanor's children and grandchildren, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Who could that be? Victoria wondered, moving to answer it. On the doorstep stood a hesitant young woman, perhaps 19 or 20, clutching a newspaper clipping about the Harrington case. "My name is Lily," she said, her voice barely audible. I was one of the other girls. From the photos they found, I saw your interviews about how you're helping kids like me, and I thought maybe." Victoria and Eleanor exchanged a glance of perfect understanding before Victoria opened the door wider. "Please come in," Eleanor said warmly. "We have plenty of room at our table." As the young woman stepped inside, Sophia appeared in the hallway, curiosity written across her face. When Eleanor explained in gentle terms who their visitor was, Sophia did something that brought tears to everyone's eyes. She stepped forward and took Lily's hand. "It's okay," she said with the simple wisdom of children. "You're safe here, we all are." Later that night, after the guests had gone home and Lily had been settled in the guest room with promises of help navigating the resources she needed, Eleanor and Victoria sat in the quiet living room, the Christmas tree lights casting a warm glow over them. "Did you ever imagine that day when you found the marks on her dress that we'd end up here?" Victoria asked softly. Eleanor shook her head. "Never in a million years. I just knew I had to do what was right, whatever the cost." "You taught me about courage," Victoria said, meeting Eleanor's eyes directly. "Real courage, not the social bravery of hosting galas or making big donations, but the kind that stands up when it would be easier to look away." Eleanor smiled, thinking of how far they had all come. "And you taught me something too." "What's that?" "That people can change, that it's never too late to become who you should have been all along." From the hallway came the sound of soft footsteps, and Sophia appeared in her pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep. "I had a good dream," she announced, climbing onto the couch between them. "We were all building a lighthouse, a really big one that could be seen from far away to help people find their way home." Eleanor and Victoria exchanged smiles over the child's head. Perhaps dreams sometimes showed the truest path forward. "That sounds like a wonderful project," Eleanor said, drawing Sophia close. "Maybe we should make it real." Victoria nodded, her eyes bright with purpose. "I think we already have." As the clock ticked toward midnight and a new day, the three sat together in comfortable silence, their unlikely bond a testament to what could be built from the ashes of destruction, a family forged not by blood but by courage, compassion, and the transformative power of speaking truth to power. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.